Doctors who've actually answered the question, is anyone here a doctor? What happened? Guy on a train was drunk and appeared to be in some distress and vomiting. When I got to the car, it was obvious to me that he was not vomiting because he was drunk. He was vomiting coffee ground emesis, an upper GI bleed. He was disoriented, likely for the same reason. The man was definitely not drunk. I turned him over to an ambulance at the next stop, spoke briefly with paramedics, and then got back on the train and continued to my mother's town. This was days after I graduated. I had not yet done a residency. Hasn't happened since. Important note in case anyone missed it. If anyone is vomiting and what comes out looks like coffee grounds, it means they are bleeding internally and need to go to the hospital immediately. Unless they ingested coffee grounds prior to vomiting. Sir, have you had coffee grounds for breakfast? Huaragra? Yes. Venezuela butter. Fair trade. Bio quality. Let this man vomit in peace. It is just hipsteritis. My son was playing baseball and took a hard grounder to the face. He was bleeding pretty bad, so the coach, another fellow, and I ran onto the field. The fellow said that he was a dentist and asked me if I was a doctor. I said, yeah, I have a PhD in physics. He kind of looked at me funny, then we walked my son off the field. I didn't realize until later that he didn't know that I was the father, and he probably thought I was some smart ass running on the field to offer medical help. Well, physics played a role in the injury, so. Not me, but I was volunteering at a race event. A man had just crossed the marathon finish line and went into cardiac arrest. While we were panicking and trying to get emergency services over, literally 2 seconds later, a whole race team of doctors/nurses and such crossed the finish line and saw what was happening. They sprang into action, and the guy ended up getting all the attention he needed and was fine in the end. It could not have been more fortuitous timing. It was almost comical. Not quite the same thing, but I once got stuck in an elevator with 6 elevator engineers. They had the doors open, and we were out in less than a minute. Don't worry mate, we're elevator engineers. Yeah, sure, good one. Let's just press the call B. Hey, stop, don't mess with it, you'll just make it worse. Oh, the door's open. That's as good as the woman who had a heart attack on a plane that was carrying a group of cardiologists to a convention. If you had to pick a time and place to have heart problems, you couldn't do much better than that. I think having a heart attack in a hospital would have been better than in a plane. Was on a flight to London and the call went out at 5:30 am. I went to the back of the plane as directed, and I eventually was told to go to the seat of a passenger. When I got to his seat, he was slow to respond to my questions, but he was alert and could tell me where he was and where we were going. Turns out he was a chronic opioid user for pain and uses benzodiazepines like Ativan for anxiety. Well, he is afraid to fly and anticipated that the rush through the airport would cause more pain. So naturally he doubles up on his opioids, plus his Ativan, plus he decides to have a couple of drinks mid-flight. He was basically so drugged up that his seatmates thought he was having a stroke. The stewardesses asked me if I wanted the captain to land the plane, but because he wasn't in any danger and we were about an hour from London, we just carried on and monitored the man. Just a few days ago, though, I walked into a bank and noticed a man lying beside the ATM. There was someone at the other one who was acting like everything was normal. I told the bank attendant and we approached the guy. Turns out he was a chronic alcoholic who hadn't had a drink in a while and was in alcohol withdrawal and had a seizure shortly after arriving. I don't know how long he was lying there or why absolutely nobody made mention that there was a man on the ground with vomit beside him. People were walking past him like it was normal. Transatlantic flight from Paris to SFO. Women developed a headache while watching a movie with her husband, starting having seizures, vomiting and urinary incontinence. Took her to the back of the plane and tried to work the problem while we diverted to Goose Bay, Labrador. Her and her devastated husband got off and were medevaced to St. John's where she died. Our flight couldn't leave since we had used all the medical supplies which every flight needs, so we had to wait till supplies arrived from another United serviced airport. Perhaps an aneurysm, so not much we could have done. I work in imaging, specifically MRI, the big magnet, in a large trauma hospital. While I'm BLS and first aid certified, I generally don't jump up unless everybody has that deer in headlights glazed look. I picked up somewhat and was driving home after the extra shift. Around 22:30, 10:30, I see a truck on its top and a circle of people watching. Yup, deer in headlights. Might wanna make sure whoever in the truck is out. So, park my car, hop out in my scrubs. Some bystander she's a doctor. Shit, no, not a doctor. Not even carrying gloves for what I'm about to walk over to see. Poor guy is sitting upright against his upside down truck, a nice degloved scalp, black and blood everywhere. Your scalp bleeds forever. A bystander hands me her shirt, and I use that as a makeshift barrier to hold the guy's neck until EMT arrives. Somebody yells for me to stop the bleeding on his scalp. Somebody hands me their belt. Sup, you can't use a belt to stop head bleeding. It's not very nice. Edit, thanks for the gold. But it won't stop the bleeding either. Well, the doctor in question is my father, not myself. But we were on a plane coming home from vacationing in Florida when, during the latter third of the flight, a man came stumbling down the aisle and nearly fell down as he passed our row. A few of us started to get up, asking if he was alright, and he quickly got up and darted into the bathroom, but not before we saw that his skin was a horrible ash gray. Dad speculated that he was having some kind of diabetic emergency. Guy disappeared into the bathroom and was in there for a long time, and after a while the most horrific smell began to waft out. A flight attendant eventually went to check on him, opening the door just a crack, the smell filling the whole plane, and was soon joined by more attendants, and after some talking amongst themselves, one asked, "Is anyone on board a doctor?" My father stood up and dutifully went back there, and when he opened the door to go in, we could all see that there was shit all over the door and walls of the bathroom. Turned out the guy had consumed a lot of wine and shrimp cocktails for what would have been breakfast, and obviously something went awry. Anyway, when we finally landed, they wanted to bring the guy out of the bathroom to a waiting EMT before letting the rest of the passengers off. The guy was mortified and refusing to leave the bathroom as long as we were there. The staff in turn said that protocol would not allow healthy passengers to onboard before one with a health emergency. So, that kicked off a half-hour or more sort of standoff where the flight staff tried to convince the man to let them take him off in a wheelchair, during which they turned off the AC and had us all close our windows and stay in our seats on a sweltering summer afternoon while the poo stank permeated every inch of the plane. People were starting to gag all the way up front. Basically, Dad finally convinced the flight staff that having all the passengers get sick would be infinitely worse and to let everyone leave, since the poor shit covered dude was not gonna budge until the coast was clear. There wasn't a whole lot he was able to do for the guy otherwise, but I guess at least he spared a bit of his dignity. The person who asked responded with, "Well, you're a nerd." Years of ASDF movies rushing back into my brain gave me vertigo. "Doctor, I think I might be a homosexual." "How can you tell?" "Pukes rainbow ass." Hand smack TV static. It happened to my sister on a flight when someone passed out. She, an OBGYN, responded, as did a radiologist. A nurse also came up to see if she could help, which my sister appreciated, since it had been a long time since medical school. I think it ended up not being serious, but she went back to her seat after assessing that the patient wasn't in labor or in need of a pap smear. Did she have her pap smear instruments with her in her carry-on? It's 8 folks, I have my speculum. Bonus points if it's warmed. I don't know about anywhere else, but in the UK, any medical doctor must answer that question. If they don't, they may find themselves in trouble. Not really an answer to the question, but just a contribution. What if they are intoxicated? Do they have to be like I am, but I can't do a thing right now? Probably just puts them at the bottom of the queue of medical professionals. I'd much rather have a moderately sloshed doctor making badly qualified decisions about my life when I'm non-responsive in the middle of a trans-Pacific flight than Karen the anti-vax Instagram influencer. Just put some lavender oil on it. Whoa, his chakras are fading. You're gonna need some crystals. Medical student here, whose dad's a doc and mom's a nurse. We've had multiple holidays where this happened. The thing that was the most impressive for me, however, was a holiday where I was 11 or so. We were swimming in an indoor pool. Dad was outside, mom was with me, and my little sister. All of a sudden people start screaming, and a 3-year-old toddler is pulled out of the water, blue and not breathing. Mom immediately started the Heimlich, upside down, to get the water out of the lungs, while my sister and I got Dad. By the time we got back, the kid was conscious and crying. Dad took him to the medic's cabin and had to literally convince the guy there to give the kid oxygen. Happy ending though, the kid made it without any brain damage or fake. We still get a Christmas card every year. But yeah, that was a lot to take in as a kid. In my eyes, my parents will always be heroes for that. Thank you for watching the video. Here is a picture of a dog. Good boy. Do you have any similar experiences? Post them in the comments below. And subscribe if you enjoyed this vid. Also check out our other videos.